And now for something completely different. I've literally never tried this before, but I'm going to capture some B-roll footage on my trip to Latvia, where I have been invited by my best friend H to be a bridesmaid at her very, very traditional Latvian wedding. I've never been to a Baltic state before, so this is very much a first for me, so I thought I'd just try and capture some of the fun along the way. After an extremely early flight, we landed in Riga, which is beautiful. I don't think I've ever been to a city quite like this before. It's a gorgeous mix of styles and heritage. It's survived wars, it's been redesigned, it's been rebuilt. It also has a lot of heritage buildings that are still standing. So it's created this gorgeous, gorgeous mix mash of culture and cultural heritage in the city center. We stayed in a really, really central location near the House of the Blackheads, which has been recreated after it suffered some attacks during World War II, but is a truly beautiful building. There's a mix of Slavic, Baltic, Eastern European, Northern European, so many different religious traditions, so many different pagan traditions. It's just such a pretty city. And getting to walk around with someone who lives there partially throughout the entire year was really, really special. In fact, the bride took me and Elle, the other maid of honor, along a walking tour of the Art Nouveau section of the city, which was so pretty. But it's also medieval, it's also modern. There's just so many different areas to explore. But after one day, we upped sticks immediately and drove to the prettiest town of Kuldiga. It's gorgeous, it's in the middle of nowhere. I don't really know how to explain it except to say that it's a fairy tale. As you can see, the view is absolutely hideous. It's a resort town of a kind, but very, very small. Again, kind of a weird mix of Alpine and Slavic and Baltic. I've never really been anywhere like it. The bride splashed out for us, and we got to stay in a historic wood-sided house that you can see has a lot of heritage elements in the background. We had an absolute blast. But the wedding venue itself, it was this gorgeous historic barn, quite literally in the middle of nowhere. I can't convey how pretty this countryside is. Brits, you might notice, it looks very similar to stuff that we recognize. The whole thing was a family affair. You can see some of the groomsmen there who play with the groom in the military band of Latvia. The location was beautiful. Weirdly, there's storks everywhere you could possibly imagine. H decided that she was going to have a really traditional ceremony in the most beautiful bucolic settings you can possibly imagine. She wore her mother's vintage wedding dress, and the whole vibe was incredibly rustic and pagan in all the best ways. All of the ceremonies, I'm not going to show any of them, obviously. It's her wedding and I want her to control how she displays it. But it was so cool to see a really genuine pagan ceremony brought to life across an entire day's worth of celebration. Don't worry, there was much partying to be had. This is just a snapshot of one of the groomsmen who drank his body weight in vodka, stayed up the whole night, and woke us all up in the morning with a rousing rendition of K-pop on the saxophone. It was such a blast, I can't even tell you. The next day we woke up with a very traditional meal. This is Latvian hangover soup. The locals swear by it. And yes, this was our breakfast. It was delicious. Then we all took in a little bit of time in the location before heading back to Riga. We were on a working farm with a working orchard, and we were taking shameless advantage of the fact. Then for Elle and me, it was back to Riga for a couple of days, where we decided to do the cultural heritage sites together. The most important one probably being the Museum of the Occupation. Something I didn't really appreciate before visiting is that Latvia was basically an occupied nation for the better part of an entire century, wave after wave of different groups. It's a complicated story and it's a difficult museum, but I think it was an important one to see. We saw artifacts from the resistance, artifacts from the gulags. We saw artwork that was created by children in many cases, detailing their time under different kinds of rules and occupations. One of my favorite pieces was this piano, which was made in a gulag without strings, and it's speculated that the owner just wanted to practice. Obviously, there were a lot of artifacts related to Soviet-specific occupation, and it's surprisingly well documented given, everything. I'll come back to this, but it was really fascinating to see a lot of different pieces of KGB heritage because of the second museum we went to throughout the day. But ultimately, this is an important museum. I'm glad I got a chance to see it. Latvia is a really patriotic country that's proud of its heritage and proud of its culture, and it's really important, I think, to celebrate and appreciate that. Elle and I weren't done with the Soviet occupation before, and actually the coolest museum we saw was this. This was the headquarters of the KGB in Riga for, again, the better part of a century, and it's been left as it was left. This was such a fascinating place because you got to wander around, you get to touch the history. This was a building that was treated as an interrogation site and holding detention center for people who spoke out against the regime, who were reported on by their neighbors for basically anything. It is room after room that is just cell blocks of different sizes, the smallest being a cubicle, the largest being just a few feet across, but apparently designed to hold up to 40 people. Living in Britain, I think we're spoiled. We get to see a lot of cultural heritage sites quite literally at their best, but there's something really visceral about being in this site as it was left, as the KGB left after the fall of the Soviet Union in the early 90s. It's exactly as it was, and it's still being excavated and renovated today. In fact, the last stop of the tour was literally the execution room. All of those yellow dots you see are the remnants of bullet holes, and the oldest layer goes back to the Soviet occupation under Stalin. This isn't an easy place to visit, but I think it's important. Then obviously we needed a bit of a palate cleanser, so Elle and I went out to enjoy the city a little bit more in one another's company. It was really nice having a traveling companion on this trip, as I don't speak any Latvian whatsoever. She and I are big foodies, and let me tell you, we ate our way across the entire country the whole time. But our last evening together, we had a really special meal at a Michelin-recommended restaurant. I'll leave the details in the description. This was glorious. It was glorious. And again, it was so cool to experience Latvian and Baltic foods. They are their own thing, their own cuisine, and I've never had a chance to appreciate it before. Sadly, though, this was a flying trip. I was only there for a couple of days, so after this, we said our goodbyes. I was able to do one last wander around the city, enjoying all of the green space and parks, and just take in a really, really unique country before it was back to the green and pleasant land. It was a great trip. I was so excited to be able to hang with H and to take you along with me for a little bit of it.